David, can you hear me?
Yes, Chair, the facilities person, Millie Chappell, will start the YouTube link.
Super, thank you. Okay, right, welcome everyone to this decision today. I'm sorry we're later than advertised, but we had a very long comprehensive session with the Select Committee this morning. So I'll just go straight into it. And Denise, can I ask you to start this discharge to assess arrangement proposal?
Of course, Councillor Fairhurst, and I'll open and then pass to Michael Burton. So we're approaching today in relation to seek and request permission to move forward between Hampshire County Council, Hampshire Isle of Wight ICB and Frimley ICB with legal arrangements in relation to potentially the continuing healthcare ways of working within Hampshire, and also to make a recommendation and seek permission for Graham Allen as director to be given permission to agree the contents of those potential Section 75 arrangements as we move forward. This is in relation to a piece of work that has been running for the last year plus, led by Michael Burton in relation to the Specialist Pathways programme, working between Hampshire Isle of Wight and Hampshire County Council. Michael, do you want to go into details?
Happy to. So, good afternoon, everybody. My role is I'm a head of service and I'm involved in the social work hospital teams supporting Hampshire residents to be discharged from hospital. And this work relates to joint work that ourselves and the ICB, which is the Integrated Care Boards for Frimley and Hampshire, have been doing for years. In fact, since COVID, our years working together have been increasingly more joint. And this supersedes previous joint arrangements that we've had with the Hampshire and Isle of Wight ICB and Frimley ICB under that pathway work and development programme that Denise just referenced. Our aims are to bring things much more closer together and to have more coherent programmes that make use of the available funding in really constructive ways and that expedite people leaving hospital to achieve good outcomes as Hampshire residents. And when Hampshire ICB and Frimley ICB aren't able to work together well with Hampshire County Council, that tends to lead to poorer outcomes for Hampshire residents because their discharges are delayed or they end up in suboptimal settings waiting for outcomes between the two organisations. So our joint work with them is hugely important to successful discharges for individuals so their outcomes are met, and it also supports our wider hospital services via timely discharges. And this agreement will enable us to undertake a programme of work, which we've had some provisional work undertaken on during this year, to really put this programme of work and area onto its firmest footings to proceed under a legal agreement which underpins everything that we're doing, thereby securing the council's position within that relationship. So that's what we're working towards through this decision.
Thank you. It sounds a very positive step forward, which will benefit our residents. Graham, have you got any reservations about this?
No, so I'm confident, given what Denise and Michael have already outlined, and indeed a comprehensive programme of oversight and governance within the Directorate. And we know that the colleagues from our legal services will ensure that in terms of being able to construct and sign in due course a Section 75 agreement will ensure that the local authority is appropriately protected in terms of its interests going forward.
Thank you. Councillor Warwick.
Yes, thank you. I'm very, very happy to support this paper and the recommendations within it. We've heard this morning at the Health Select Committee the importance of a smooth discharge from hospital, and I think this can only help that process. So that's my only comment, and I'm fully supportive. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Withers.
Yes, I'm fully supportive, and as you've just heard from the HASC this morning, that fully supports the recommendations.
Thank you. Councillor Briggs, I don't want you to be left out.
Thank you, Chairman. Obviously fully supportive. It's vital that we do the best for our residents, and I think this is a good way forward. Thank you.
Right, thank you, Denise and Michael. Very happy to approve the recommendations. And this is for 1 year only, isn't it? With a view to
It is.
So will we see you back within a year, hopefully, making a longer term arrangement?
That's
Yes,
certainly
that's
the
the plan.
intention.
Super. Thanks very much. Thank you for your
Thank you,
time.
councillors. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Moving on. Capital programme. Dave,
Thank you very much.
have you had enough of this?
We'd never get enough of it. So I will be fairly brief and I'll pick out the key points. In respect to the capital programme, what we're doing is we're rolling forward the monies from previous years to continue those schemes that started sometimes many years ago or sometimes last year. So all of those schemes are being rolled forward. There are two new items, there are three new items. The first is the additional for maintenance for the supporting the HCC care homes, 481,000, as I've outlined previously. That 481,000, normally there's an allocation for the next 3 years, but due to the impact on revenue, the capital is prioritising resources from 25-26 onwards. So the money's still held centrally, along with other directorates and schemes of a similar nature, and they will be prioritised at this point in time. So only 481,000 have been added for 24-25. The second new item is the £173 million for HCC Care Fit for the Future. As I say, at this point in time, as in addition to the capital programme, any spend against that sum will require an individual business case for each build or each scheme, which will come will come to executive members and leader over the next 1 to 2 years as we develop those schemes. The third item, which has been added to the capital programme for this year and future years, is the Disabled Facilities Grant. That has been set at the same value as previous years because we know we received a unique additional amount in 23-24. If we receive that sum again for 24-25, that will be added to the capital programme furthermore. Other than that, the key point I would make is that we have a capital programme for 23-24 of 49,154, and that's all the schemes rolled forward. And just to give you a flavour, these are in the main the extra care facilities and the supported living. They're the two main schemes. Excuse me. And then we have the addition of the £173 million in later years along with the state facilities grant. So there is nothing new, nothing particularly different other than the £173 million from those reports that I presented in prior years. I'll finish that from you.
Thank you.
Unless there are questions.
No, can I ask Mr. Allen a question? Are we any further forward with the disability facilities grants of getting the districts to work with us so the money isn't lost, if you like, in the system?
So conversations at an operational and a tactical level continue with district and borough housing partners. And of course, as one would expect across our district and borough councils who are very different given the geography of Hampshire, some are keen and we're pursuing conversations. Hope, but positively, yes. Good.
Close to losing it in the system. Councillor Warwick.
No, I'm very supportive of this paper. There's some interesting funding which is really important, and it's in the detail of this paper. For example, the 1.2 million to be spent on the 6 fully wheelchair accessible bungalows at Sonic Court.
Yeah.
So that is really positive. So I know in the HAS committee earlier people were talking about cuts. Actually, there's some significant, really important expenditure in this paper that I think perhaps might have been lost earlier on. So I'm very happy to support this, and it'd be a real shame not to see that happen and that take place. I know some people voted against this paper. Actually, this is a very positive paper for our residents, particularly for our disabled residents.
Yeah, and I would say Sonic Court is a wonderful example of what we can do to improve facilities for people with disabilities. I mean, I don't know, have you all visited it?
Yes.
Because even, you know, having a bench outside so that if groceries are delivered, they're delivered at the right level for someone in a wheelchair as opposed to dumped on the floor. The thought and expertise that went into it is really amazing. Councillor Withers?
No, I fully support it. This, you know, Fit for the Future is what we're about, and the 173 million plus the other expenditure there is so important to ensure that we maintain that Fit for the Future purpose.
Again, supportive, and if we can do the best we can for our people with disabilities, it's the best thing we can do. And I would like a visit to Sonic Commercials. I haven't been there. It sounds fantastic.
It is. And I believe there are plans for more. Yeah. Okay, right, Dave, thank you very much. More than happy with your report. Shall we? And we'll take this now to the Leader in Cabinet, isn't it?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, right. So now it's the revenue.
Thank you very much. Again, I will be very brief in the summary, primarily because there is really the first time I've done this, that there isn't actually a great deal of change from what was previously reported. But I will just highlight that obviously the autumn statement, there were very few announcements of additional funding for local government, and when that got translated into actual allocations, the provisional local government finance settlement in December, that rang very much true. And as I said before, the actual change to funding to the council overall is negligible in the scheme of things. What I would add is that this means that we still have an £86 million gap for 24 as a council, 24-25, which will need to be drawn from the budgeting reserve, and that the autumn statement and the provisional local government finance settlement has meant that there is no change to the position for 25-26 of the £142 million gap. In respect of the directorate, the key point I would make is that the revenue budget has been increased by £10.5 million. That was previously been assumed or agreed, and that was in fact that occurred in the December cash flow report, and that in principle would be an additional pressure to the council, but with other various high-level changes, we're expecting and hoping that that will mean that the £142 million does still hold true. The other highlight I would make is that we have got another £5 million of savings. The director has got £5 million of additional savings to make in 24, 25 and beyond, in addition to the proposed SP25 savings of around £7.8 million of it. And that is going to be a challenge, very much so, primarily because obviously all the savings programs, the hardest savings to find are the last savings, and each saving program that comes along would therefore mean it's more difficult to make those savings. But the Director of Travel, optimistically, that those savings will be achieved, and work has started to consider how those will be delivered in full. The other highlight I would make is that the outlines the proposed increases in fees and charges for internal services, and that represents a 6.2% increase in the price or the full cost rate from the previous year. This is primarily related to local government pay awards, which we know for this year, and bearing in mind the national living wage has gone up by 9.8% for next year, that would indicate that the local government pay award is likely to be akin, or could be akin, to what we've seen this year. We know that that's about, across the HCC care estate, that's around about a 7.2% on average increase. So when we forecast and we build the additional increases for 24, the price for 24-25, we're making an assumption around the pay award, and we're making an assumption around what the consumer price index, including housing, looks like, and that has come to 6.2%. The only outlier there is the Meals on Wheels increase, which is significant, but that's not an increase that's being approved in effect here now. There is no change between the price that's being paid for a meal now as opposed to April. The change occurred back in the summer when we changed provider, and there were very little options in respect of alternative providers. And the provider that we have secured has increased the price, but what I can say is the price is now locked in until April 25, so it's in effect there's 18 months at the same rate. But it is a significant increase, but it's important to state that increase has already happened and is not as a result of the proposals within this report. The key point to take away is that there's a £10.5 million pressure above what we previously assumed. That is based on estimates and the trajectory of client growth and prices, and therefore it is liable. It will, I can guarantee it will change, but it could change upwards or downwards depending on very much what we see over the next 6 to 8 months. I would highlight again that I think I said this previously in the briefing, that 9.8% increase in the national living wage will be a pressure compared to what we put in the budget. And it'll be a pressure in the sense that it'll be a pressure on the commissioning teams and conversation we have with the provider, because that 9.8% will, whilst as Graham said, it's a very positive thing, but it will create expectation among providers. And we do not have, in effect, the headroom within the existing budget to accommodate an increase of 9.8%. Let's say we've already increased it by £25 million.
Yes.
At that point, I'll stop. Unless there are any other questions.
Shall we all go to the
I'm sorry. Yes, it is. It is.
It's not good. No.
It's very challenging.
Yes. Can I just ask again? I think it's probably Mr. Allen. How confident are you that we will get the savings from T21 and the SB23 by the end of this year?
So I think it's a really good question. I think it's a really tough question to try and answer easily and succinctly. As Dave has already said, frequently it's the last bit of saving which is the hardest part of the saving to achieve. Having said that, the plans that we previously set out and the timeline that we previously described, we're hitting month on month. So at this moment in time, I'm not overly concerned that we won't achieve it. There is also a practical point, and we've learned this through previous transformation and savings programs. At some point in time, you need to collapse one program into the next, because otherwise you end up coming back, meeting yourself each time, and you're claiming success, but the success may be a bigger savings program that is the later one, if that makes sense. So we'll continue to monitor it very closely. We've got those mechanisms and those processes in place. I'm not overly concerned sitting here today, but clearly we'll keep it under close review.
Thank you. Yes, it would be good to get them done before we start SB 2025. Otherwise, we're sort of carrying a trail of savings or transformation that we're not actually achieving the final bit of. You know, and then probably we'll get to 2027, and you know, as I say, sorry, I shouldn't say that.
I would just add that particularly in the younger adults arena, many of the savings for SB25 are a continuation of those savings, that there are still some residual sums on for SB23. So it follows that people went random to say volunteers is not particularly a very good example, but volunteers is there for SB23 and SB25. So you would always declare the savings against SB23 to do exactly what you just described, because we don't really want to be in the game of having to report 3 different programs. And so we would look to try and close those programs as quickly as possible. The savings that get delivered, we would just allocate them to the earlier programs so we can close them as quickly as possible. And that's consistent with what we've done previously with T19.
Yeah, no, that's good. Yes, Laura.
I think this is a really good paper, and it illustrates the challenges in huge depth right across a large directorate that ours is. And it shows the challenges in that decision making and how detailed you have to be, Dave. You know, we are protecting the most vulnerable in our county. And I think if anyone reading this paper would be reassured that we've got a handle on all of it. It doesn't all make wonderful reading, but we at least we we understand where the pressures are and where the opportunities are. And I think items like the home care framework should give reassurance to our residents that we are drilling down and getting best value for money. So although it's kind of could be read negatively, I do feel it's a really important and a very detailed paper, so I'm happy to support it.
Councillor.
Yes, I fully support it, but as Jan has just said, you know, the working with outside agencies, the NHS and the private associations for the framework, you know, demonstrates actually our ability again to progress forward, despite the changes in the programmes that are coming ahead.
Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? I suppose it's my 11th time of listening to one of these, and I'm going to say I have every faith in our officers. We still, with all the problems we have and the cuts that we have, we still continue to do the best for our residents, and this seems a good way forward. So I support it.
Yes, and actually, if I could ask Simon, if he could get people healthier, our budget might get more, not quite so tight. So public health part in this is terribly important.
It is, and I think there's a number of things that we are really thinking about, both in terms of our leadership and our responsibilities. So if we improve cardiovascular disease outcomes, there's less strokes, there's less people coming with disabilities. So we're really trying hard. I think we've seen a shift this year with ownership from other partners in taking that on. We saw a massive detrimental effect of some of the things during COVID where QAF stopped, so the way they measure things, so actually some of their outcomes were diminished. And I'm really focusing on new smoking money, which I don't think is in here because it's not quite mentioned, so we're getting extra allocation on those people who are most vulnerable, including some of their adult social care clients. So if we can improve their health, they have less needs, so we're doing that very carefully.
Yeah, thank you. Anything else? Graham, do you want to comment?
No, I mean, the challenges I think have been well expressed. I'm still relatively confident in terms of the resilience and sustainability of the services that we've got and the realism of the programme of SP25 that we've got going forward. That doesn't mean for a second it won't be challenging, it won't be difficult. But I must just kind of underline and pay testament just to the quality, not only of our own staff, those that we directly employ, but staff across the whole sector in terms of seeking to do the right thing by people and provide the support that they require, and in a way that we're able as a local authority to continue to support and finance going forward. So no, nothing further to add.
Thank you. So if we go to section B, the recommendations, I'm very happy to approve these, which is to submit to the Leader and Cabinet the revised revenue budget as set out in Appendix 1, the summary revenue budget as set out in Appendix 2, and the proposed fees and charges as set out in Appendix 3. Thank you. And thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'm very
Millie, can you stop the recording?
Yeah.